And JuJu is a bigger baller than Caitlin Clark. I said it.
I said
it.
Yeah.
I said it.
Cam Newton just said JuJu Watkins is a better athlete than Caitlin Clark, and Stephanie White wasn't having any of it.
But the statistics say what everybody needs to be knowing.
Yeah.
JuJu is a better athlete than Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
But this isn't just about Cam Newton running his mouth or a former MVP fumbling a comparison. This is about truth versus agenda, leader. But sometimes having a big platform means your words carry weight you didn't calculate. And in this case, Cam fumbled bad.
Rivalries always equates to ratings.
Yeah.
There's more rivalries in men's sports. That's why the ratings are high. See, the thing about JuJu, the thing about Paige is, it's not saying this is bad, but they're good girls.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark was a good girl.
Some opinions spark discussion. Others ignite wildfires. But what happens when a former NFL MVP drops a hot take that mixes talent, race, branding, and controversy? All in one breath. You get an explosion. That's exactly what happened when Cam Newton made one of the boldest, most controversial statements in women's basketball this year. Sitting comfortably on a podcast, without warning, he said it. Loud, clear, and confident. JuJu Watkins is a better athlete than Caitlin Clark. And just like that, boom, the internet lit up. Clips went viral. Twitter, now X, went into overdrive. TikTok flooded with duets, rants, stitches. YouTube reaction videos exploded. Headlines raced to catch up. Everyone had an opinion, but very few had the facts. And amidst that digital chaos, one voice stood out, not because it was the loudest, but because it was the calmest. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, a seasoned veteran of the WNBA, player, coach, analyst, leader. She didn't rant. She didn't clap back. She didn't go viral by shouting. She went viral by leading. What followed wasn't just a debate between athletes. It became a story about perception versus performance, hype versus hard work, and ultimately, leadership versus loudness. And trust us, boss, this story isn't about basketball alone. Cam Newton has always had a flair for drama. He knows how to command attention. He's been a national figure since his college days, a Heisman Trophy winner, a former NFL MVP, and one of the most magnetic personalities in sports. But sometimes, that charisma walks a tightrope, and this time, it fell straight into controversy. It happened during an episode of the 4th and 1 podcast, a show where Cam often gives his raw, unfiltered takes on everything from NFL politics to fashion. The topic turned to women's basketball, and that's when he said it, seemingly off the cuff. JuJu Watkins is a better athlete than Caitlin Clark. The comment alone wasn't necessarily inflammatory. JuJu is a gifted athlete. Powerful, quick, dynamic. But Cam didn't stop there. He pivoted from comparison to criticism. He framed Clark as someone whose success was manufactured, engineered by media hype and cultural bias. Then came the branding bombshell. Cam called Caitlin Clark a good girl. And he contrasted that with players like Angel Reese and JuJu, who he said carried more bad girl energy. That kind of language is more than just words, it's loaded. It plays into long-standing stereotypes about race, femininity, and marketability in sports. And here's where it got messy, eh? After weaving all these threads, race, branding, good versus bad, Cam suddenly said, "It's not about race." But it was too late. The damage was done. You can't stir the pot, pour in fuel, and then claim there's no fire. Fans instantly saw what was happening, an attempt to elevate one player by subtly devaluing another, using coded language and problematic comparisons. Social media exploded. Some defended Cam's opinion, claiming it was a fair take. Others tore it apart, calling it tone-deaf, divisive, and unnecessary. The truth? It was more than just a bad take. It was a lens into how race and image still shape the way we view women in sports. Let's pause the debate and look at the data. If we're talking about who's the better athlete, we need to start by defining what that means. Athleticism isn't just speed or strength. In basketball, it's also about IQ, consistency, endurance, and the ability to dominate across multiple areas of the game.
So, what does the scoreboard say?
Caitlin Clark during her sophomore year at Iowa. 27.0 points per game, 8.0 assists, 7.1 rebounds, shooting 45.2% from the field, 33.2% from three-point range, 85% from the free throw line, led the NCAA in both scoring and assists, broke records that hadn't been touched in decades. But here's the thing. She didn't walk into college basketball with a hype train. She didn't have media crews following her every move from day one. Her rise was organic. It started with her actual gameplay, her deep threes, her no-look assists, her clutch shots, and slowly, the attention followed. Now compare that with JuJu Watkins, also a sophomore, averaging 27.1 points and 7.2 rebounds per game, playing for USC in a major media market, getting ESPN highlights, viral moments, and growing endorsements. Universally praised as one of the most promising young players in the game. JuJu is incredible. Let's be clear, this isn't about tearing her down. But what Cam did was try to build her up by dismissing Clark, when in reality, both athletes are thriving and both are being recognized. In fact, many sports analysts agree. JuJu's sophomore year media coverage has already surpassed what Caitlin received at the same stage. That's not a knock on JuJu. It's just proof that Cam's take was built more on perception than reality. Because when you lay the stats side by side, the conclusion becomes obvious. This isn't about better. It's about different greatness. Now, let's talk about the most uncomfortable, but necessary, part of this entire discussion. Cam Newton's comment didn't exist in a vacuum. When he framed Caitlin Clark as the good girl and JuJu as the one with more edge, he was tapping into a long history of coded comparisons. In sports, especially women's sports, this dynamic has played out for decades. The good girl is often white, well-spoken, media-friendly. The bad girl is often black, emotional, competitive, and unapologetic. These aren't just images. They're narratives created and perpetuated by media, fans, and sometimes athletes themselves. By invoking that dichotomy, Cam unintentionally fed into a tired trope. And then came the ultimate contradiction. It's not about race. Except it is. Because once you introduce race-coded language into a conversation, good girl, bad girl, media favored, rivalry manufactured, you've already opened the door. You can't walk it back. The uncomfortable truth is this. JuJu Watkins and Caitlin Clark are both brilliant athletes. But framing one as more authentic or more suppressed by media, based solely on race or branding, isn't just inaccurate, it's damaging. And fans weren't having it. The backlash wasn't subtle. Cam's clip became a case study in how not to compare athletes in 2025. While the internet spiraled and hot takes poured in by the minute, Stephanie White took a different approach. She didn't jump into the fray with anger. She didn't log on to Twitter to fire off a storm of replies. She didn't even name Cam Newton directly. Instead, she did what true leaders do. She spoke with purpose, clarity, and confidence. Stephanie White isn't new to the game. She's spent over 2 decades in women's basketball as a player, coach, and analyst. She's been in championship locker rooms. She's seen how narratives can lift a player or destroy one. So, when she stepped up to defend Caitlin Clark, it wasn't emotional. It was intentional. She called Caitlin Clark what she is, a high IQ, adaptable player who has already shown incredible growth at the pro level. But more importantly, White emphasized that Clark's success wasn't manufactured. It wasn't handed to her through branding or media manipulation. It was earned. White talked about leadership, not the kind that comes from loud moments or viral quotes, but the kind that's built quietly behind closed doors, in practice, in huddles, during film study, in how a player lifts up teammates, even when they're down. She said Clark wasn't just talented. She was coachable, driven, and hungry to improve. And that's what shut the noise down. No screaming, no drama, just facts. Here's something that most of the hot takes missed. Locker rooms tell the real story. If Caitlin Clark were really a media-made player, One who is all flash and no substance. Her teammates would know. And the tension would be obvious. But what are they actually saying? Let's start with Lexi Hall. She didn't just say Clark is a great teammate. She said she's the first one to pick others up. When a teammate misses a shot, Clark doesn't sigh or roll her eyes. She says, "You got the next one." She encourages. She jokes. She brings light energy even when things are tough. That's not branding. That's leadership. Then there's Erica Wheeler, a veteran who's seen it all. She said practices with Clark are full of laughter, full of joy, that the chemistry is real. That Clark doesn't make it about herself. She's not the kind of player who needs the spotlight. She's the kind who shares it. These aren't media sound bites crafted by a PR team. These are real-time reflections from women living the grind every single day. So while outsiders are speculating about locker room drama and ego problems, the people actually inside are saying the opposite. Caitlin Clark is a connector, a leader, a breath of fresh air. And in sports, that matters more than any viral moment ever will. Let's get real for a second. Why do stories like this keep happening? Why does the media keep pushing rivalry over reality?
Simple. Drama sells.
Conflict gets clicks. And in a world where women's sports are still fighting for mainstream attention, some creators, pundits, and even athletes will use anything to create engagement. Whether it's truth or not doesn't matter. What matters is the fire, the buzz, the trend. But Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever aren't buying into that game. They don't need headlines. They're building something deeper. When Cheryl Swoops made a vague comment suggesting players want out of Indiana, it sparked another round of speculation. But instead of responding with more noise, the team stayed focused. Because inside the Fever organization, they know who they are. They're not a brand. They're a unit. Even the team president stepped in, praising players like Kelsey Mitchell publicly. That kind of support doesn't exist in fractured locker rooms. It happens in families. And the Fever? They're becoming a family. Let's zoom out. This story isn't just about Cam Newton or Caitlin Clark. It's about the WNBA's rise and how it's happening right now. Ratings are climbing faster than ever. Ticket sales are booming. Jerseys are flying off shelves. Young fans are wearing WNBA merch to school. Highlight clips from Fever games aren't just trending. They're dominating feeds across platforms. And it's not just because of Clark's logo threes. It's because the team is fun to watch. They move the ball like a college powerhouse. They trust each other. They share the load. They celebrate each other's wins and own each other's mistakes. This isn't the kind of growth you can fake. It doesn't come from media hype. It comes from culture, the kind that leaders like Stephanie White build day in and day out. So yes, Clark is a star. But the Fever are more than just one name. They're a squad. And their rise is a result of what happens when the right leadership meets the right players at the right time. So, let's wrap this up. Cam Newton made a statement that set off a firestorm. But what followed wasn't just a backlash. It was a reckoning. It forced fans, players, coaches, and the media to ask deeper questions. What really defines greatness? How do we talk about women athletes without falling into lazy stereotypes? And most importantly, what matters more? Hype or hard work? Stephanie White didn't clap back. She didn't try to win the argument on social media. She did something way more powerful. She told the truth. And that truth spoke volumes, not just about Caitlin Clark, but about leadership, about culture, about how teams rise when the noise is ignored and the mission is clear. So what's your take? Do you agree with Stephanie White? Was Cam Newton way off base? Or was this conversation overdue? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this real. No fluff, no filters. Just basketball, leadership, and truth. And if you want more deep dive breakdowns, no BS storytelling, and player-first narratives, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because this season, the WNBA is just getting started. And so are we.